Good evening and welcome to The Debate this Thursday evening. Joining me in the studio to go through all the big stories in the world of football, Andy Townsend and Gary Rowett. And of course, we want to hear from you as well at Sky Sports PL using the hashtag The Debate. And this is what's coming up. Pep Guardiola thinks that Manchester City need to win every game if they're to lift the Premier League trophy at the end of the season. But can either side afford to drop points? Liverpool are up first this weekend as they travel to Southampton. Tottenham have the keys to their brand new home. How big a factor is that in terms of qualifying for the top four? Just 3 points between four teams as they chase Champions League qualification. Has Unai Emery finally got it right at Arsenal? Can Maurizio Sarri win over the Chelsea supporters? And can Ollie get the wheel turning again at Manchester United? And as Fulham are relegated, how well prepared are they to come straight back up?
So now we are already 1 point in front, but we are going to play before on Wednesday is going to play, so maybe they, hopefully not, but maybe they got a good result, and the important is that we were far away, 7 or maybe 8 points behind, and we were consistent and believe, and now we are in the position. 18 points with 6 games left it's a lot of points, you know, and just keep going. Now you have 10 days until Sergio starts, so now is semi-final, Champions League, and game by game.
Well, they can only keep going. They are 1 point ahead of Liverpool. They've both played the same number of games. Now, Liverpool will play first this weekend when they travel to Southampton. But Pep Guardiola thinks that Manchester City are going to have to win all their games between now and the end of the season. If they do win all their games between now and the end of the season, including the cup competitions, they'll end the season with an unprecedented quadruple. In terms of the league, though, do you think they're going to have to win everything?
I'm not sure they will. I'm not sure they will. He's obviously given his players the mindset because it sets a real positive message that we're going to win every game. We're going for it. We know that we have to win every game. Not expecting Liverpool to drop any points, but I think City will drop points. I do. I think that period around the Champions League games with Spurs and then United, I honestly be very surprised if they sail through all of those games and winning them all. Look, they might lose a Champions League tie, which I'm not saying they're going to lose too many, Manchester City, but I'd be very, very surprised if, with what's in front of them, they're able to just roll everybody over and just assume that. I think there's a lot of mileage left in what's going to happen at the top of the Premier League. It's so exciting, but I don't think they'll win every game.
Is that the danger for them that Pep Guardiola is trying to guard against? As Andy said, not quite complacency, but certainly that a lot of their wins have been comfortable.
Yeah, I think so. And you know, you always feel with Guardiola that he's always trying to look at a step ahead, isn't he? He's always looking at what they might need in the next few weeks. So by saying that, you know, you raise the standards in training, you raise the standards of the players, you focus their minds, which I'm sure at this stage of the season won't need focusing that much. But I think both managers, you know, have done such an amazing job because every time one team wins, because they don't seem to play on the same day, do they? You know, every time one wins, then the pressure's on the next team and they win.
I don't think they will now until the last day of the season.
It's incredible, and that's going to take a certain psychology to keep bouncing back against that little bit of adversity or to keep having to win when you're under a little bit more pressure. I know the pressure of winning the Premier League, you can't get any bigger than that, but ultimately, to keep having to do it every week, you know, for the last 4, 5, 6 weeks of the season, it's going to take an awful amount of energy.
I think it feels like it's a bit harder for Liverpool. They're having to work just that little bit harder to get over the line in matches. But again, they're doing it, and I've been so impressed with them, the way that they're not at their absolute best when like they were in December when they were knocking goals in all over the place. It's not happening for them quite as easily, but they're doing it. They're getting it done, and really, at this stage of the season, it's only just about making sure you win the games. And I think both teams will drop points, and I honestly feel it will go to the last game.
It's not fair to say that they've missed him, given that they sit top of the table, but that doesn't mean that they don't welcome him back and firing on all cylinders.
No, and I think the beauty of it is that he came back quite a few games ago, didn't he, and just struggled to get that momentum and to get that sort of extra sharpness that a player like that needs. And the beauty for me really is, you know, you couldn't pick better timing, could you? For him to come back into form, for him to be such an iconic and important player for them, because the tactical flexibility that he can have with De Bruyne in your side. I know they don't need that because they've got so many good players, but he can play as a holding midfielder, he's done before. He can play a little bit wider cutting in, he can play as a 10, he can almost play anywhere really. And to have that extra little bit of ability at this time, you wonder what lift that also gives to the other players.
Yeah, when you think he and David Silva and now Phil Foden last night played very well, looked really good, and Gundogan has got better over the season. Fernandinho came back in last night. So, crikey, they've got so much in that department. And now the manager's just got to find the right combinations. Bernardo Silva has probably been as consistent as any of them. He and Raheem Sterling have probably been City's best players all season. So he's got incredible options in the middle of the park, and now he's just got to put the right pieces together in the right games.
If Bernardo Silva and Raheem Sterling have been the best players for City so far this season, could Kevin De Bruyne be the most important in this final phase?
Could do, because he's, again, you just know, like that one last night. I mean, it's only my opinion that he might have said that he did mean it or whatever, I don't know, but he's got goals in him in big moments. He's a special player that can produce those big moments when they're most required.
Maybe it's because it's Kevin De Bruyne that we think maybe he did mean it.
Well,
maybe
exactly.
with someone else you wouldn't think.
Oh yeah, absolutely right. I didn't see too many other teammates going over and laughing at him when he knocked it in. But he's a brilliant player, and if they are to pull off this amazing quadruple, then you can bet your life he'll be significant between now and the end of May.
I think what's ironic is if you look at their poorest results are when Fernandinho got injured midway through the season. So if you look at one player that probably knits it all together, you wouldn't notice him as much, but I think Fernandinho in that holding position just seems to give them a wonderful balance. But of course, like Andy says, in terms of going forward and scoring goals and making things happen, of course, De Bruyne is essential. Even
with Fernandinho, although they had those couple of games where he was missing and they lost the games, then the next time he was out, Pep Guardiola found a way to use Gundogan in order to not do the same thing, but to cover for the fact that Fernandinho wasn't there. And that's been a hallmark of the way he's used his squad throughout the season.
Well, I think when you've got so many good attacking players with so much creativity and movement, and I think, Guardiola spoke a lot about it before, it's about them, holding their shape in possession. That means when they lose the ball, they've got a brilliant defensive balance. And so, like maybe when Fernandinho wasn't playing, it was a more attacking player, played in that role and maybe didn't quite give them that little bit of an anchor, that little bit of defensive stability, particularly with both fullbacks going forward so well. So Gundogan, as we know, can play that role. It's probably from a tactical perspective also, not just from a physical perspective. So I think that's a crucial area for them. I think that probably gets undervalued a little bit.
The one thing I think City have over Liverpool is that I think they frighten teams more. I mean, I wasn't expecting Neil Warnock's boys to go there last night and start flying all over the place at Manchester City. Who's going to do that? Come on.
And certainly not Cardiff under Neil Warnock.
Well, exactly. And I mean, they were so unlucky. I was at Cardiff watching them against Chelsea at the weekend. They were really desperately unlucky in that. So I don't think I was expecting them to go there and start taking the game to City, but I did expect a bit more. And I think City genuinely frighten everybody. And I think that when the majority of teams that particularly at City's ground, they go there assuming they're just not capable of getting anything from it. And I don't know what you think, Gary.
Well, Neil actually mentioned it after the game, I think, in his post-match interview, didn't he? He said, we just didn't want to get a heavy beating, which again shows what other managers in the same division, it's an incredible division, but yet there's still such a divide between the quality. And like you say, I think Man City, not necessarily a difference, but if you look at Liverpool, whenever Liverpool score first, they've virtually won every single game because it probably allows more teams to come onto them, which gives that counter-attacking, quick-paced style. It just gives those forwards a bit more space. Man City seem to be, just as comfortable in any outcome. I'm not saying one's better than the other, but I think certainly Man City, just seem to be able to score from any single
They
way
dominate
or any
the
type
ball,
of game.
don't they? And every team you see it playing up at City end up camped on the edge of their own 18-yard box and sat there, and it's just a case of when City are going to find the right way through. But I would say City just seem to frighten teams, perhaps at this moment a little bit more than Liverpool because of the way they're playing. But I think Liverpool have done brilliant to keep grinding them out when it's been a bit tougher for them.
If we're looking for chinks in their armour, they're only ever going to be tiny ones that we can find. Could there be an issue at left back? Zinchenko has said on social media the injury is not that serious. Pep Guardiola sort of said that probably it's about a week for him. They've got Benjamin Mendy, who...
Yeah.
I was going to say disciplinary problems, but again, publicly, Guardiola is saying, I can't control what my players do. If he wants to go out to a nightclub before training, then he can go out to a nightclub before training. But could that be an issue for them?
It could. I mean, he has Laporte that can play left back. He can do that. Fabian Delph's out injured, I think, at the moment as well, so that's a bit of a blow. Yeah, so right now, as we speak, they're a little bit, perhaps, just a little bit brittle in that particular spot. But again, I think he can change from a back four to a three to nullify that and and then all of a sudden you've got Leroy Sané flying up and down as a left wing back. So there's a lot he can do to maybe alleviate that problem. But look, I think there's bound to be injuries, key injuries, Gary. There's, you know that they can come in when you least expect them and they can hurt you.
Of course they can, and I think the beauty for Man City at the moment is, until they play in those games where perhaps you're going to be a little bit more tested at the likes of left back. And I don't think it's a massive issue because, like you said earlier, they have so much of the ball. You could always go and play De Bruyne at left back because, they end up so high up the pitch with so much possession, But then, the games where you go and play Man United away, I think that might be a slightly different scenario, although you'd still expect them to have lots of the ball. So I think both sides, Liverpool, for me, have added real quality and depth to the squad, which I think has been a big difference this season. Yeah. I think both of them can cope with almost anything now player-wise because they've got so much quality within the ranks.
And particularly for Manchester City, the issue is going to be how he manages his squad competing on three fronts as they go towards the end of the season, expecting Manchester City to progress in the FA Cup and assuming that they progress in the Champions League. There's going to be a whole host of extra games for them between now and then. Sergio Aguero is a player that has played regularly throughout this season. You talked about playing without pain at the start of the season. But is he a player that you think that Pep Guardiola will manage, even though we know he's named strong sides in cup competitions?
Of course. Gabriel Jesus played last night and it wasn't one of his finest games, but is still an incredibly talented boy. But you're right. I think when those big games do hit, the significant ones, then he would want Aguero fit and well and would want him leading the line for the team. He's such a prolific goal scorer and has got such a pedigree in big matches. Understandably, he's going to want him playing, but I think the City squad is so good. I mean, can you imagine if Raheem Sterling had to go and play down the middle at the moment? You wouldn't find too many centre-halves that would fancy playing against him. We've seen him in an England shirt when he's played central, that he can look very, very good. So I just think, as Gary says, he normally has the answer to combat the opposition, and I'm sure if he gets a few internal problems because of injuries, he'll probably have the answers to that too.
Yeah, Neil Warnock said that none of the Cardiff players would get into either City's first or second choice starting 11s, I think. So, yeah, they do have strength in depth with their Champions League games and their FA Cup matches still to come. As for Liverpool, if the issue, small as it is for Manchester City, is that they might have a small problem at left back. Maybe it's about the fact that they might find it comfortable against teams and being able to deal with that. For Liverpool, is it about the newness of the situation, the fact that they haven't been there before like the Manchester City players have, and that it will ask questions of how they deal with the pressure of that situation? I think that's a question that's been put out there about Liverpool now for probably a couple of months or more, and you know what? They keep answering it each time they play. I think I don't see any visible signs of pressure getting to them. I think in an ideal world, of course, they love to see Salah perhaps in slightly more free scoring mode than he is. But with 6 to go, 7 to go, does it really matter if Mo Salah is absolutely flying right now, or does it matter that they keep getting over the line? Well, I know what Jurgen Klopp would take. If Mo Salah ends up getting just 1 or 2 goals between now and the end of the season, but they keep winning, it doesn't really matter. I think with this amount of games to go, it's like being in now a World Cup tournament or a European Championships. You've got 6 or 7 matches. You win them, you scoop the big prize, and it doesn't matter how you do it. Do you think that goals like the one against Tottenham, the winner, and the way it came about, will help Liverpool, or will they be hindered by the fact that they were so close to dropping points in that game? What do you think that they'll take out of that? Now that the dust... Yeah, you get the euphoria at the full-time whistle, but now the dust has settled, what do you think?
Well, they've had a couple of games like that, haven't they, where it's looked as though they were going to drop points and then they've showed the mettle, you know, to come back and get something out of the game. So you can only imagine that would give you that little bit of extra inspiration. That would give you that extra bit of confidence. I mean, you know, we spoke about... There seems to be this sort of common feeling that because Man City have been there before and done it, that they suddenly have a big advantage over Liverpool. But Klopp's won titles before. You know, a lot of the players in that Liverpool team have vastly experienced and have won titles in different countries and different competitions. So I don't necessarily think that's a massive advantage. But it's just it's that feeling sometimes, I think, where you've just got a few games where you know you've kind of got away with it a little bit, that I think you then have to go and capitalise in the next few games and make sure it doesn't continue to happen, because you're not going to get away with that till the end of the season in some of the games coming up. But I think they've handled if you want to call it pressure, I think they've handled the pressure fantastically.
Everyone focuses on Salah because of the little run he's been going through, but Sadio Mane's been unbelievable. His finishing has gone up a level in this moment when they're supposedly their main man. You know, his finishing has become even more composed and has become better. Robertson, you know, I think is such an outstanding player. The last few games has been incredible. Trent Alexander-Arnold, again, you know, for a young boy coming into this situation, I don't see him looking too pressurised when he's flashing balls in with that right foot across the 6-yard box. You know, I don't see a lot wrong with what they're doing. It might not be quite as free-flowing and it might not appear quite as beautiful as it was, but I wouldn't want to play Liverpool. Do
you think they've got enough goal scorers? You know, if you look at Liverpool's midfield, you know, do they have as many goal scorers as Man City seem to be able to score from almost anywhere, don't they?
But they don't. They probably don't, Gary. But does that add... With how many games is it?
They're down on goals scored from last season, but their goal difference is slightly better, I think, because their defence is meaner.
But I think, you know, we've seen Van Dijk recently nodding one in. You know, I just don't think at this stage, I just don't see... it's absolutely imperative who does what, as long as they do it, as long as they get the job done.
Unless it comes down to goals scored.
Well, exactly. If it comes down to that, then that's going to hurt. But that would be incredible. But look, you know, City have got more ammunition. You would when you go through them, when you go through each player. But again, I just think for Liverpool now, we're that close to the finishing tape that I don't think it really matters who does it.
And City's goal difference is significantly better than Liverpool, so it's not going to come down to goals scored for pedants. We talked about Virgil van Dijk, the fact that he has got a couple of goals for Liverpool, but the improvement in him, we've seen the improvement in Liverpool since he's come into their defence, but he's back to Southampton, second time that he's been back there since he left. The improvement in him as a player since moving to Liverpool, what have you seen in him?
Well, I think when you looked at him in his early days, the one thing, you know, that everybody wants now and you saw massively in Van Dijk was his ability and his composure on the ball, you know, to bring the ball out of defence and to have an array of passing. And that was the one thing that stood out. Of course, he had lots of other good traits, but I just think all round he's improved. Defensively, he's improved so much. I mean, the maturity he's shown in performances, he looks to me like... and I couldn't say that necessarily he wasn't a leader before, but he just looks to exude those leadership qualities at the moment. And I think that has been, you know, perhaps that and the signing of Alisson, probably those two signings for me have been the things that Liverpool have needed over the last couple of seasons, you know. But he's been so good. I don't want to say he's been improved because that suggests he's come from nowhere. You know, he's been a top quality player, but he's got a little bit of everything now. I don't think there's a better one in the Premier League.
If you look at like United's centre halves, you think whichever combination they've got, one of them could do with someone alongside them to lead them. To absolutely, you know, Chris Smalling absolutely got his merits and he's a good player. If he had someone alongside him really leading him, he might even look an even better player. Whereas for Liverpool, Van Dijk looks like he's happy to really shoulder that responsibility of being, I am the main man, and whoever plays alongside me, you listen to me and you watch and you make sure you're in tune with me and we'll get it done together. And I think he's really taken that on board. He's not just come in and wants to just try and just play very well. I think he also wants to get others, that back four and the goalkeeper, as Gary says, really really together.
I don't see many weaknesses. Sorry, I don't see many weaknesses in him. You know, if you look at him overall, technically, I don't see anything that he can't do. And I think that's the beauty, like you're saying about Man United. You look, they've got some good defensive centre-backs. They've got some that are good on the ball, who are perhaps not quite as robust as some of the others. But for me, Van Dijk's got a little bit of everything, hasn't he?
And he talks about the fact that even conceding a goal when they're 4-0 up will hurt him. He comes off and it doesn't matter if they win the game. For him, it's like a goal scorer coming off and not having scored if they don't manage to keep a clean sheet. Do you think Liverpool have got a better chance of winning the Premier League or the Champions League?
Wow.
Given that they've got Porto in the next round of the Champions League, if they get through that, it will be either Manchester United or Barcelona.
Right.
And that's ignoring the great teams that are in the other side of the draw as well.
I think they've got a better chance of winning the Premier League, personally. I think they might have a better chance of winning the Premier League. That's just... I think that's... it's so difficult. The Champions League, there's so many good teams in there. I mean, trying to pick a winner out of this lot at the moment is incredibly difficult. So I would be inclined... When I look at Liverpool's fixtures in the Premier League, I might be inclined to think that I can see them keep chipping away at those and getting that done. The Champions League, of course they can do it, but it's so difficult, so tight, so hard to call.
What do you think?
I don't know. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see. And I'm not suggesting that either side would prioritise a trophy. But I think if you looked at it this season, I'm sure that if Man City had to say now which one they want the Champions League, you know, I think that would be evident. Of course they want all of them. And I think if you ask Liverpool, I think they'd take the league, you know. So it'd just be interesting if that affects anything as the season starts to get into the final bits. But I think you look statistically, of course, they've got a far better chance of winning the Premier League.
I think if Liverpool, it's the next two. Southampton on Friday's not easy, and then after that, Chelsea. Yeah. If Liverpool
Let's take a look. Actually, we can see the run-ins for both sides, and also remembering that the Champions League games will come either side of the Chelsea game for Liverpool and the Crystal Palace game for Manchester City.
Yeah, I mean, look, see those next two for Liverpool. I think if they can get them done, and that's not straightforward, but at home they've been so impressive. At Southampton, even though it won't be easy and they're expected to win, I think they'll win it. So I think if Liverpool get them two done, then all of a sudden the pressure, I think, for the next little period between the third week in April and the end of the month is on City, around those Champions League games with Spurs and the United game at Old Trafford. So
I think the pressure's... I'll be honest, if I look at that there, I mean, it's hard in such a quality division to say one run-in's easier than the other, but I think if you look at Man City's next three games, I think they're all going to be a real... an incredible challenge in different ways, because Palace kind of like playing against those possession-based sides so they can hit them on the counter-attack, and they're always very, very dangerous. And then, of course, Tottenham and Man United are incredibly difficult game. So we might end up... I mean, it could go either way, but you might end up seeing Liverpool coming out of that period on top, and then the pressure's back on Man City.
Correct.
Yeah, so the semi-finals, the Champions League semi-finals, should they both progress, will be either side of the Leicester game for City and either side of the Newcastle game for Liverpool. So they'll have potentially a Champions League semi-final second leg before the last game of the season on May the 12th. So there's so much room for the sides, just like you were saying about having that focus, just the tiniest loss of focus could have huge repercussions over their season.
And they're going to get a point where, you know, you're going to have to, if there's crucial, because every game's going to be crucial, and there's going to be crucial games within a 2 or 3 day period, and you're going to have to, in some way, not prioritise, but you're going to have to pick a slightly stronger team or your top players. You can play them in both, but the reality is these days, you know, you're going to have to mix and match. Guardiola spoke quite famously about, you know, tiredness doesn't exist. You know, it's all in people's heads, you know, and you're going to certainly see whether that's true, because they're going to have some incredibly difficult physically and emotionally and mentally games coming up.